Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Celtic make it a night to remember in the Champions League. Brown and Armstrong injury worries for Scotland. Owen Coyle confirmed as the new manager of Ross County. Yeah, just a few of the talking points. Alan Ruff and myself, Peter Martin, will be discussing with our boot-room guest tonight. And I'm delighted we're welcoming back an old friend, former Rangers defender, Partick Thistle teammate of Ruffy as well, David MacKinnon. David, delighted to have you with us. We've got lots to talk about. Let's have a look at the morning papers, see the back pages. And no surprise, Lee Griffiths just towering above Patrick Roberts there. A sensational result for Celtic in Belgium, 3-0 over Anderlecht. And of course, Pedro Caixinha just at the top of the paper there on this apparent meltdown with his players. The Sun, again, reference to Celtic. We have liftoff after taking their first 3 points in the group. And there's also on the sidebar there, don't call me a clown or a goldfish, I'm an elephant. More golden nuggets from the Rangers manager. We'll discuss that shortly because it's Hamilton Rangers on Friday night. And the Daily Mail, it's a sweet spot summing up Celtic's win. And also a little reference there on the right-hand side. Players will show they are with me, says Pedro Caixinha. So there you have it. That's how the back pages look. Of course, first port of call has to be the Champions League, has to be that sensational result last night, Ruffy.
Yeah, we were sitting here yesterday saying a point would be a good result, but they took it a bit further. Another impressive performance. I think the first 25 minutes was a wee bit shaky. You know, obviously the home team pressing all the time, but once they got control of the game and they got the first goal, there was only going to be one winner, and they lost some poor goals. You know, you can see the state that they're in just now. And it's a great 3 points, you know, and I'm just wondering whether they'll lift the bar a wee bit now, because obviously Bayern are a wee bit of not the team they were. You know, do you now say, well, let's go for them? You know, let's see if we can, you know, maybe get that second spot.
Yeah. Can you give me that cup over, Ruffy, just to see what you're on at the moment? Are you the full shilling?
I think you're going to get, obviously the first game's away from home, and if you get a reasonable result there and you bring them to Parkhead and have one of the nights that Celtic can have, one of the Juventus nights, Milan nights, Barcelona nights, I think you've got to look bigger than what you're. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's amazing what a result does. You get a result like that away from home. I would just like to see the bar being lifted and saying, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months ago when you were on this programme, you know, you were all doom and gloom. Scotland were never qualifying for the World Cup. Strachan was practically out the door in your book, you know, and we were in the doldrums. And now there's been a massive transformation in you. I'm just wondering if you're on some kind of herbal diet or something like that. No. But I'm going to go for a bit of realism in this, because one of the things that brought a wry smile, listen, it's great that Celtic got the result, but when one of the after-match interviews put it to Scott Brown and Lee Griffiths about you can build on this going to Germany against Bayern Munich, the two of them looked at each other and, you know, there was just that little moment of, yeah, that's going to be no mean feat, Davy.
Well, I'm in the same stuff as, drink the same stuff as Ruffy, because I actually think Celtic have got capabilities to actually do that, and you know, I think it's actually, you bed yourself into any European games, and I think Celtic have done that. I think, you know, when I saw them against Hamilton, and they were exceptional, you know, beat them 3-4-0, it was going on about 10 actually, and I thought when they went to PSG they may actually have got a result, but they actually, the tables were turned, they performed a bit like Hamilton, you know, they were a bit in awe of them, and I think that came home to roost the first 20 minutes. I think they gave them too much time in the ball. Conversely, I think they bedded themselves into the game, you know, against Anderlecht last night. I think as Ruffy says, first half hour, they couldn't find a pass, but that was down to Anderlecht really closing it up and making it tight. But after that, the wonderful goal, that first goal was absolutely magnificent. And once they get that, Anderlecht had to come out, and that kind of gave Celtic the confidence. So I think you grow in confidence as you go on through a tournament, and I think Celtic are doing that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to dig myself out of a hole on this one. I think they deserve tremendous credit for defeating Anderlecht on the basis that some people suggest, oh, well, maybe Anderlecht are in disarray at the moment. But, you know, I've been on countless away trips commentating on games where Celtic were tipped to finally end a long hoodoo, and then they'd fallen flat in their faces, Ruffy. So they deserve tremendous credit for that. You know, we always talk about levels. Brendan Rodgers has got them playing a style of football that I think is so in line with how you progress in Europe. Patience, try and keep the ball. First 25 minutes, I mean, Nicham was just having an absolute nightmare, and then suddenly he hits a wonder pass to Kieran Tierney, who matches that with a ball for Griffiths in the first goal, as Davey alluded to. And then after that, I think the biggest point of it all, 2 points, the two central defenders, and the third goal, because the third goal for me basically puts them in such a good position to get the Europa League in January.
Yeah, well, you have to say, you know, I mean, obviously we can't look into the future. I don't think that Anderlecht team will take points off anybody. So it means that they've got to come to Parkhead and win 4-0.
Yeah.
So at this moment in time, you would say, yes, Celtic are in Europe after Christmas. So with that in the bag, you know, obviously, I know the quality that the Germans have got, but coming to Parkhead, there's always a hope that you could do something. That's why I'm saying it's important the game over there in Germany is kept pretty tight. If you're going to lose it 1-0. And then when they come here, you know, you've obviously got the chance to beat that. And I know the Celtic fans out there will be saying, hey, we could do this. I mean, that's what you do in football when you get a good win like that away from home. You start saying, believing that you can beat teams like them.
Okay. Basically, if Celtic defeat Bayern Munich in any of the two games, Ruffy, I'm taking you for a weekend away, and you'll be able to pick a massage or a facial.
Okay.
But not both.
But not both. Okay.
Can we go to Thailand?
No. No, only you can take that in another direction. But listen, I take the point because there are so many positives. I mean, the one worry about it all was the injury to Scott Brown, because that's got implications for all of us at international level.
Well, you knew straight away. I mean, and the good thing is he pulled up relatively quickly. He didn't run it, you know, unlike their defender who, you know, his ankle injury was horrendous, and he decided to play on for another half hour. Scott Brown's experience, he knew that he'd pulled his hammy, and, you know, that's probably saved him 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be, you know, it'll be tight, literally. Yeah. But I think that, you know, Brendan Rodgers will choose his games for him to miss. I think he'll miss the weekend just to let it settle down. But, you know, Europe is important for them, so they'll probably bring him back for that. Yeah, I think from Gordon Strachan's point of view, Ruffy, I think from the performances this season and last season as well, he's just gone on to another level. I think he's absolutely vital to Scotland's hopes against Slovakia. Yeah,
I think anybody looks at the games that he's playing at for club and country now, he's a different player now. He's a playmaker. You know, he's not making the telling passes that the number 10 does, but he's controlling the whole game. He's controlling the pace of the game. He's controlling who's coming into the game, and he's matured that way that everybody now looks at him being the leader on the park, and that just shows you how important it is we need him.
Yep. Here's a look at the table to see where Celtic stand after that win against Anderlecht, and it's certainly in a more positive state. They are just tucked in now behind Bayern Munich, who are looking for a manager. We'll discuss that very shortly on the programme after their 3-0 drubbing at the hands of PSG. So Anderlecht, the last game for Celtic at Celtic Park, it'll be buzzing, and I think most of them will feel confident, as you can see from the fixture list here. Listen, I think I have to agree with you. Anything is possible with Celtic at home, but even, you know, with their spending power and with the quality that Bayern and PSG have, you would reckon Anderlecht and Celtic will struggle to get any points until they get to December 5th. But I would say this to you, you know, I've been wrong before, Ruffy. You could be wrong again. Sometimes, though, I think the media gets caught up when there's one result, and it just starts to go into overdrive before we actually get a sense of realism again.
Would you agree that this German team isn't the team of old? You know, a lot of them are getting on. You know, they're not hitting the heady heights that they were hitting. Yeah. You know, that I know they've got the quality players there, but I always think one of these European nights at Parkhead, that you can do something. That's why I'm saying it's important when they go over to Germany to keep that result to something that you can match at home and even better.
Yep.
I think you know, it was interesting to see that the next fixture's the 18th of October. You know, I actually thought it was closer than that, and that's actually, if you're Brendan Rodgers, you're going to manage Scott Brown's injury through that period. That's the game they want to bring him back for, because, you know, with respect to the games in between that, they're not going to risk him. And I think, you know, I would almost certainly rule him out of the Scotland game.
Yeah, I think the good news for everyone in Germany, with the Peter and Roffey show now being live streamed over there, I'm going to break it to Alaba and also Vidal. Let's not forget Lewandowski and Thomas Muller, that their good days are well and truly behind them now. Alan Rough has just said, it's all over for you guys. It's forget about any Champions League finals now. It's gone for you. And of course, let's not forget Ribery and Robin as well. So give us your thoughts at Peter and Roffey on Twitter and Facebook.com/Peter and Roffey. Can Celtic keep the dream alive? Can they do what Alan Rough and David MacKinnon said? They could maybe surprise the Germans in their weakest moment. We'll talk about all the other Champions League results from last night as well. And we'll also hear from Pedro Caixinha, Craig Levein as well. All to look forward to after the break. I can remember being in the stadium, Roffey, and thinking, if there are not 150 scouts in there trying to get this boy signed at 17, I'll be gobsmacked. He was absolutely magnificent, and I think Anderlecht on that night defeated a very strong Celtic side 3-1.
Yeah, he's very young in that photograph there, obviously, but now, as we all can see what he's grown into with the Man City. We saw even any time he's out of that Man City side, they lose goals, but when he's in there, he just controls everything at the back.
Yep, okay, let's look at the other Champions League results from last night as well. Basel with a 5-0 win over Benfica. That was a surprise. Manchester United were quite simply majestic against CSKA Moscow, and everything that Romelu Lukaku touches usually ends up in the back of the net. There's Paris Saint-Germain 3, Bayern Munich 0. Well, it just shows you the strength of the French champions now. They've dismantled Bayern, and it's cost Carlo Ancelotti his job. And that brilliant result last night, Anderlecht 0, Celtic 3. Elsewhere, well, it was a hero's welcome for Diego Costa in the stands, but on the pitch, Alvaro Morata continues to perform, and Batshuayi scored an injury time winner for Chelsea in their win over Atletico Madrid, which must have been sweet for Antonio Conte. Juventus get all 3 points from their 2-0 win against Olympiacos, and Barcelona with that solitary goal winning in Lisbon. So that's how some of the results looked. Got to get your thoughts on some of the scores. Manchester United, strangely enough, we've tipped City to win the league, but United look a really formidable outfit.
Well, Lukaku, as you say, is scoring for fun, you know, and I was in between a couple of games last night, and I saw his goals, and you know, he's just majestic. He's into great positions, he's got a great strength, and as we know about goal scorers, once they get a confidence and start to score goals, then it just escalates. So I think he may get 20-30 goals this season quite easily. Yeah.
Are they a last 8 team for you, Roffey?
At the moment, yeah, I think they are. I've always thought the defence was suspect. I know they've got a good goalkeeper, he had 2 excellent saves a game. I think the centre of the defence, small, and I know they're good players, but when you get into that last 8, I think you've just got to be better than that.
Yeah, imagine if they had company.
Well,
that would be the difference, wouldn't it?
That is exactly it. I mean, if you've got that solid spine, as we were talking about on yesterday's show, elsewhere, it just shows you the levels that everybody's operating at. I mean, this is, for the big clubs, this is just a formality of getting through and making sure they're in the first 2. But even Bayern Munich, losing to Paris Saint-Germain, it's cost the manager his job. They don't suffer over there. I mean, you can win the Bundesliga year in, year out, but you've actually got to go and get to the Champions League final to save your job.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the big owners want at the big clubs. That's the only thing that matters, is getting into the latter stages and possibly winning it. As I said, I don't think they've had a great start to the season, so I don't think it would just be that result. I think there's obviously they're not impressed by what's happening elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and of course for Chelsea, Antonio Conte, he has mentioned that he might want to go back to Italy, no surprise, one day, but it was sweet last night. You could once I actually saw the pictures of Diego Costa in there, the happy man who stomped his feet through the dummy out of the pram, I thought to myself, I hope Chelsea win this one.
I saw that actually, and I saw the footage of him up in the stand, you know, and it was sweet revenge. But you know, he was a great player for Chelsea, and you know, you just wonder the influence of agents to get him to go back there. I mean, would you see another club taking him away from Atletico Madrid in the future? Doubt it very much, you know. So I think he's maybe back to his level that he wants to be at, and maybe it's the home comforts, you know, that's maybe what he wants.
Yeah, I wonder if you could look back on your career, David, and tell me, was there ever a time when you weren't happy with the manager or the deal that you just signed, and you were phoning him saying, I'm in here, I'm at the seaside and I'm not coming back?
Well, I tell you, when I signed for Thistle, I just wondered what I'd got myself into when I saw Ruffy and his horse in the dressing room. Good shoot. I'm talking about Ruffy.
How I wish that story were true. Anyway, so some managers lose their job if they don't meet the expectations of the fans and the chairman. And that's particularly true of our next tale, because Roy McGregor has appointed Owen Coyle as the new manager of Ross County on a 2-year deal. Ruffy, God, he moved quick from being on the programme a couple of days ago with no idea of the manager, and then suddenly one springs up.
Yeah, I think if you get a chance to talk to Jim McIntyre, they might be a wee bit miffed about that. You know, it looks as if things have been going on. I'm not saying they are, it's just my opinion. Been going on behind the scenes. Obviously, people like to have somebody in place if you think you're going to move somebody on, and that looks as if it's been on the cards, but he's obviously played it very close to his chest. But it's a sore one for Jim, obviously, and Billy, but they'll have to get on with it. And I said yesterday, I don't think it will be very long before they're approached by somebody when a job comes up.
Yeah, well, here's what the chairman, Roy McGregor, of Ross County had to say about Owen Coyle's appointment.
There's no guarantees in football. You just, like any appointment, any job appointment, you hope that you get it right. You try to examine and check and try and sort of dot the I's and cross the T's, but there's no guarantee. But I hope that the chemistry is right, and if the chemistry is right from the board to Owen, I'm sure Owen will take that enthusiasm back to the players and we will get results.
Interesting take on it. Owen Coyle's got some CV. He's been around a few clubs, and maybe just wants to try and get back in on a regular basis now.
Well, I know him well, and you know, he obviously went to America and did his stint out there. You know, I'm going to mention Bayern Munich and Ross County in the same sentence, and that doesn't happen very often. But it's about managing expectations. You know, Munich have obviously got their expectations. They have to qualify for the latter stages. What are the expectations of Ross County? Because in my book, I think Jim McIntyre did a very, very good job there. He had a difficult opening fixture list, but the decision was made. And you know, I think that Coyle, one of the things he would want to know is what's the expectations of the club? Because basically, if he mirrors what Jim McIntyre's done, is that success? Because he was very successful at the club, and that's it. It's managing success for owners.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a great point you make, David, because if the expectation is far above what Jim McIntyre delivered, then we should see Ross County as Scottish Cup champions within the next couple of years, Ruffy.
Yeah, I'm sure when he sat down at the meeting, that would obviously be one of the questions he's going to ask the owner. You know, you've just sacked a guy who was pretty successful. What is my brief here? You know, what do you want me to achieve? And then it'll be up to Roy to tell him, you know, what his expectations is. But they must be pretty good if Jim McIntyre never lived up to them.
Yeah, here's what Owen Coyle had to say about it all. First of all, he reckons he's got a point to prove.
You've always got a point to prove. You know, if whoever was lucky enough to come into the job, they would have a point to prove, because you want to keep improving, you want to keep winning, and it's like anything else. When you've had a slap in the face, if you want to call it, in football, as I've had, and equally I've had some unbelievable highs. You want to make sure that you bring all those qualities to the club and help improve the players, because that's all said and done. You have to win games in the field, and Ross County haven't done it well enough in that lately. You know, at the outset of the season, they've lost 6 of the last 7, and and we have to change that. We have to get back to winning games and look to try and improve the club.
Yeah, it's a good point that Owen makes here. I like Owen a lot, but I'd like to get a slap in the face with an English Premier League side, Robbie, because when you get a slap in the face down there, it's such a huge payoff.
Yeah, particularly depending what kind of contract you're on. But most of these guys are on 4-year contracts, so I'm sure it'd be well looked after. But it's interesting, I'm saying you need to win games. So there's a philosophy then, if he wins 6 of the next 7, he gets sacked if he loses. You know, is that the format?
Yeah.
You know, that seems to be the thing that keeps getting thrown out there. Lost 6 of the 7. You know, there's no guarantee that Ross County are going to improve on that in the next 7 games. So it's a tough one. I honestly really feel sorry for the two guys.
Yeah. Here's Owen Coyle's take on the ambition.
Almost we hope to look to improve from where we are just now, because as I said, you know, football's the best game in the world. Sometimes it can be a difficult business, as we know, particularly managers. We can attest to that. So there's been a change made, and what we have to do now is look for that positive reaction. Look to try and turn those games that have been, whether it's been closed, resulted in losses, turn them into wins, and start to try and move up the table.
Okay, I suppose if you are looking to take on a team to boost the confidence, it doesn't get any better than your old team Kilmarnock, David, does it?
Well, that's it. You know, I think that you always got a bounce back when a manager's thing. But, you know, just come back to Ross County just briefly, is the fact is that, you know, they're a team whose business model is to bring in players virtually every season. So there's a churning of players all the time, and sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not, sometimes they take a time to gel. Thistle were a wee bit like that a couple of seasons ago, but they've now got, you know, a mixture of youth and experience. So he's going to come in, players, the big thing is a manager comes in, as you know, he's inherited a squad. What does he do? But, you know, big game on Saturday, because I think that Kilmarnock are struggling really, you know, and I think that they'll be looking for a result. But you know, Ross County, the boost of a new manager should do very well on Saturday, I think.
Yeah, and the point that David's making there is something we've been talking about, Ruffy. Roy McGregor's notoriously a chairman who spends in a January transfer window to get them out of a predicament.
Yeah, he always has done that, you know, but I think that I thought the change was Jim had stopped that. You know, I think Jim McIntyre had looked at, you know, that happening, 8 players coming in, you know, every 6 months or something, and he said to himself, right, no, I'm going to try and establish a nucleus of guys who I want for 2 or 3 years, and you have to say last year it worked. And the year before that, you know, so it's just unfortunate the start he's had this year, because I thought that the players being united together is better, you know, because they all start fighting for each other. If another 8 guys come in and then out and out, the continuity in the dressing room isn't that good.
Yep, okay. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about Hamilton against Rangers, 2 of David's old clubs. We'll get a real insight into Hamilton, and David isn't aware of the fact that both Ruffy and myself have tipped Hamilton for the drop. I wonder if he can give us an insight on whether he agrees with us or whether he disagrees with us on that point. So, Pedro Caixinha and Declan John also coming up next. Yep, good times at Burnley, and getting them up into the Premier League was one thing. The big job was trying to keep them there, but since then, amazingly, Ruffy, they have bounced back after being relegated and back into the top flight again.
Yeah, and again you have to look at the money that these clubs are getting for coming back in, and obviously they've used it very, very wisely. They've obviously been up the first time, they've known the quality of player they need to bring in to stay there, and you have to say they're doing okay just now. They're scraping out results, and I don't think there'll be a problem for them getting relegated.
Okay, tomorrow night's game is Hamilton against Rangers. We've tipped them for the drop, but you don't think they will go down, David. Is that heart or head?
No, that's head and inside knowledge, because I think you've tipped them every year since they've come up to go down.
No, your man. Your man's tipped them 4 years in the trot.
I know that they won't get relegated. I think they'll finish. I think they'll be close to the top 6. I think that there's a knowledge within the club of how to deal with games. I think they've got experience, but they've got some wonderful young players coming through. They've got a guy sitting on the sidelines. They're needing a goal scorer, Antonio Rojano, who's an Argentinian player. I was involved in getting him, helping him to get a work permit. He's registered with the SFA, and when he gets a work permit, if you get a chance ever to look at him on YouTube, Antonio Rojano, he's exceptional, and the quicker they can get him in, their chances are increased to get higher up the table.
Yeah, you mentioned there, and this is something that maybe we don't take into consideration. I think what happens, and it could be lazy journalism, it could be a situation where you merely look at the spend from Hamilton Accies in relation to all the other clubs, and you're thinking to yourself, well, the laws of probability here will kick in sooner or later. But again, you're talking about the mindset at the club and being able to handle the difficulties, and if you're in there and you're experienced at it, you can get out of it, which they have done time and time again.
Absolutely, and I think the fact is they've been through it, they know what the expectations are, and they've got players, they've got a great spirit. One of the things they've got, and that can actually get them extra points. If you were actually looking at the tables just now and looking at the performance this season, would you still tip Hamilton to go down? As if you're looking at Ross County, Partick Thistle possibly, and Kilmarnock, are they? I'll ask you the question: are they coming into your mindset as far as getting relegated?
Yeah, well, I think to be honest with you, and we were talking about it there, Ruffy. Kilmarnock are coming into my mindset for the playoffs. Ross County, I think, I've tipped them for the playoff as well, with the Hamilton in the bottom spot. But as David says, the one thing that's evident by March, you could actually throw a blanket over 5-6 clubs who are still in the mix.
Yeah, but as David says, the philosophy at Hamilton is they don't panic, because they have a mindset of what they do, and what they do is right. I even think if Hamilton were to get in a division, they wouldn't panic. No. They would continue to do what they're doing, is bringing in young players, and you have to give Hamilton credit for the amount of players that's left. Yet they're still in the Premier League. It's very, very difficult to replace the quality of the players who have left, but Hamilton do it year on year. I think the only reason we're saying it is because we don't think the resources are there. Like we're talking about Ross County, if they're struggling, the owner will go out and get another 7 players. I can't see Hamilton doing that, because they wouldn't do it, because what they'll do is they'll just promote somebody else in. No. So I think it's the resource thing that makes us all say Hamilton, because as Davey said, I've been impressed with most of the games they've played this year, and a lot of the games they could have maybe got more points out of it. I just think on the long run, these teams that we're talking about, Partick Thistle, I'm not too sure about Kilmarnock now either. Partick Thistle, Ross County will pick up, but I think, as you say, they will all be very, very close together. Yeah,
it's how they fare against each other. I mean, possibly this one tomorrow night is just one of those bonus rounds for Hamilton Accies. But is it the perfect time to come up against a Rangers side, which, if you're looking at it and you're hearing the whispers and the leaks, this is a club where everything is not rosy in the garden.
Well, it's about mindset, and if Rangers have the correct mindset going into the game, I've got no doubts they'll win, irrespective of what Hamilton do. But, I was at Hamilton, got early to one game. Aberdeen arrived, and the players looked at the surroundings, they looked at the pitch, and they said, what about this place? And they were beaten 3-0. Rangers have probably 5 foreign players that have come in, have never been, don't know where Hamilton is. The Super Seal Stadium will be new to them. And when they arrive off that bus and go out, potentially a wet Friday night, are they going to want to give everything on that surface? I don't know. And if their mindset is not correct, then I think Hamilton will win.
Well, on that point, Ruffy, we have a situation. I mean, Chris Commons, his column in the Daily Mail was quite scathing, basically saying the players have no faith in Pedro Caixinha, the fans have no faith in him, and he's now on to the next step. He's testing the Rangers board. We've already mentioned the fact that every game seems to be him walking a tightrope now.
Yeah, I think it is, but I think, like anything in football, I think it's growing arms and legs. From the outside looking in, you would say, yeah, it doesn't look a happy camp, but I'm sure if you ask the majority of the players, they would say that's been exaggerated, because players go out and want to win for their mates, and I mean, I don't know the manager at all, but I'm sure they'd want, nobody likes to see their manager going through a turmoil or people putting them under pressure. So collectively, you all get together and you fight for them, and the results will prove whether they are all fighting for him. And he's already went on record by saying that, and that's the way he'll be judged.
Yeah, well, Pedro Caixinha said that the result on Friday will prove that the team is completely behind him. One man he'll be happy to get back in the side is Declan John, their foraging fullback on the left-hand side, and he's been talking about the form of the team.
You know, at the end of the day, you can look at points and stuff like that, but I think if you look at the actual football that we have played at times, I think it's been pretty good. Like I said, you know, I think it's just the difference in two boxes at the end of the day, you know, trying to keep a clean sheet and obviously trying to score more goals when we get up the park then as well.
Well, you mentioned about players who might not fancy it, and you're talking about players all want to do their best for the manager. Pedro Caixinha has consistently been defending one of the players in Carlos Peña. I want to see more from him, David. It's not that anybody has an agenda against the player. I think the Rangers fans are looking and saying, wait a minute, you've come here with you know, a big wage packet, a high pedigree, you haven't been fit, but if you are fit now, and Pedro Caixinha says he's the third fittest player in the squad, this is a game where you should be strutting your stuff.
Well, one thing he's going to have to his advantage is that Darren MacKinnon, no relation, suspended. Because, you know, Darren MacKinnon really, as you know, gets about players, and I think you would give him a torrid time. So I think he'll be pitched up against Greg Docherty, who's got a tremendous energy, tremendous engine in him. So, you know, Peña, I don't know if he's going to chase back, but he'll have to chase back on occasions because Hamilton will go and attack Rangers, because Martin Cannon, one of the things that we spoke about is young players that know how to win in the league. Martin Cannon, if you look, this is his third season. He's now starting to know the game inside out and how to win. And I think he'll set it up his side to go and attack Rangers.
Yeah. How much of the success of it is down to the individual as the manager, David, in your mind, and the structure of Hamilton?
Well, the structure is unique, basically. They give players a chance, and that's attracted a lot of players that have come in and wanted a platform to play. But the basic, you know, ideology is to bring young players through. And, you know, Stephen Boyd is a player. I don't know if you've managed to see him. He's probably the best of the next class to come through. But I've been told, I've seen them on a couple of occasions, that the under-17s are probably the best team that they've had in a generation. So, you know, it's all good for Hamilton. And as Ruffy says, if they go down, it doesn't really affect them. The mentality stays the same. So that's a good thing, because you don't panic then.
Yeah, of course, one of the Hamilton Accies players has mentioned in the last 24 hours that they don't fear coming up against Rangers. This is, of course, Louis Longridge, just one of a number of players in there that David mentioned, all being given their chance in the first team.
We know if we stick to what we can do and stick to the basics and work hard, then we can get a positive result on Friday night. We have started the season well. Even the couple of results from the previous weeks haven't really reflected on the performances. We felt we should have got more from the games, and if we had, for instance, won the game on Saturday and picked up a point the previous week, then we'd be further up the table, and it was looking more positive for us.
Yep, he had a spell where I thought he was actually going to be leaving Hamilton, but he stuck in there and he showed a bit of grit and determination.
He's a tremendous guy, Louis, really focused. And what he did was he was injured for a while. He was out with an injury, and I spoke to him a few times because you try and give players a wee bit of a lift. And he says, what I need to work on is my upper body strength. And he spent 6 weeks in the gym, and he's like a colossus. He's like Ruffy in his prime, you know.
Yeah. So Louis Longridge is 13 stone 7. Is that what you're telling me? No, he is. He's one of those guys. I think you need that mental strength, especially to come back from the injury as well. You know, we had him on the programme actually, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think young players. I admire young players because they're different from when we were. You know, they now realise that they have to be top of their game. They need to be so fit, it's unreal. And all credit to them. All the ones that I see are determined to make it to the top, and they're in the regime that they're in, and they're there for their own success, and obviously the teams as well.
Okay, briefly before the break, give me a prediction.
Unfortunately for Hamilton, I think Rangers will just nick it 2-1.
2-1. David?
I think 2-1 to Hamilton.
There you are, that's magnificent. And don't think we won't play that clip back, just in case he's nailed it. OK, coming up after the break, we're going to hear from Hearts boss Craig Levein. It's been quite a traumatic week for Hearts, with one individual doing a lot of soul searching. I'm talking, of course, about Kyle Lafferty. Craig Levein gives us his thoughts on his striker and whether he can bounce back, and, of course, on the form of the Tynecastle side. And we'll also chat to David about what he's up to now in his personal career. Join us after the break. Well done to Davey. That's why we got him on the programme. Just that feeling that he had the knowledge there to get that point in the bag. OK, we're going to switch our attention to the Premiership. What's on offer for the weekend? Because you can join us Saturday afternoon on STV2. Right across the country, we'll be focusing on all 4 divisions in Scotland and the Premier League in England. Here's a look at the fixtures in the Premiership. Hamilton Rangers on the Friday. It's Aberdeen St Johnstone, a return for Stevie May against his old club. Celtic against Hibs, another return for the manager of Hibs to Celtic Park. In Neil Lennon. Dundee against Hearts. Well, it's 2 former teammates together in Neil McCann and Craig Levein, and it's Kilmarnock against Ross County, and then Motherwell against Partick Thistle. So, of those fixtures, one that's been occupying our thoughts has been Hearts, because Craig Levein was speaking today ahead of their game against Dundee at Dens Park. And first of all, he gave us his thoughts on Kyle Lafferty's gambling addiction.
The overwhelming feeling has been one of that he's been very brave to do what he's done. He's been very well supported by a lot of people, and it's a terrible addiction, and we're all hopeful that he can overcome it. But he's certainly approaching things now with the right attitude, for sure.
Sometimes, David, sympathy can be in short supply because, and I'm not talking about the majority, but a lot of people look at it and say, well, you're professional footballers, you're getting lots of money, and if you make that choice, why should there be any sympathy for you? But I think the club stance, Hearts, has to be commended. And over and above that, certainly the player, because you could keep it to yourself, you could just go on a downward spiral in your life. It has happened before.
Well, there's a lot of it going on in football, and it's very, very difficult for players that get into that, cycle of continually betting. And, all credit to Hearts for coming out and supporting them, because at the end of the day, it's a cry for help and they want support. Conversely, if you look at Joey Barton's situation down in England, they've come down very, very heavy on him. And I don't think that rehabilitation, that it's punishment is really the right way to go. So, all credit to Hearts, and hopefully, people start to be supportive of people in that situation. Yeah,
maybe with the help, his frame of mind changes, Ruffy, or it gets better than it was. And Hearts reap the rewards, and I think Northern Ireland as well.
Yeah, it's a really tough one for the player if it's an addiction, because I don't think anybody, if they're going through that kind of scenario, can concentrate on playing football. No. If you're losing that money, and you're obviously your family's affected as well, you're not focused on what you're doing, so it's in the club's best interest to back the player 100%, but he's got to want it, and that's a good thing about it. He's came out and said, look, I need help. As Davey said, there will be other players out there who are trying to just not talk about it, and just they're going to get so far down the road that they're going to need help desperately. So I think the advice that we keep hearing from people in that kind of addiction, whether it's alcoholism or gambling, is seek help. Want to help yourself, because there's only one way to go if you continue doing it, and that's a downward slide. And as we said, we've seen enough guys in football falling by the wayside, and they should come out and ask for help, and everybody should be supported of them.
Yep, OK. As far as Hearts are concerned, it's Craig Levein coming up against Neil McCann. Well, slowly but surely, I think we can start to see the Craig Levein effect on Hearts. Here's his assessment of how things are improving at Tynecastle.
shown resilience in matches, coming from behind against Partick last week, and holding on to a lead against Hamilton the week before, having a good strong second half against Aberdeen. We can play better. That's the next challenge. I don't think it's do that and then we do this. It's more of we do this part and then that seeps into the play as well. So we can play better, we know that.
I think they will get better under Craig Levein. There's no doubt he has qualities. I don't think he should be tarred with just one moment in an international career. I think he's got something to offer, and I think Hearts will see the fruits of that.
I really like Craig as a person and as a manager, and I think that he was brave in trying what he did. He tried to break the mould. It didn't work, and he took a lot of personal criticism for that. And but he's now. The buck stops at him, and he started to make things happen at Hearts, and I think that he'll start to get Hearts moving. And as we spoke about the transfer window, I think it's an important transfer window for Hearts, because I think he'll look to bring players in to complement the squad, and they could go up into the top six, because that's really where they have to end up, up challenging.
Yeah, just on that point, David, I mean, apart from Celtic, which everybody accepts are on a different playing field completely from everyone else financially as well, what about the runners and riders for second, third and fourth, possibly fifth in your mind?
Well, I think obviously Aberdeen, St Johnstone continue to, do very, very well, and Hearts are up there. Rangers, where will they finish? I don't know. Potentially they could finish third or fourth, which, I think that they had really, the amount of ambition, the fans, they should be up there challenging. So maybe it might be a transition period for Rangers, but longer term they want to be up and challenging Celtic. But just now it doesn't look as if that's going to happen.
Yeah, who's your bet for second then?
I think Aberdeen will finish second. That's my view. I think Derek McInnes is a good manager. He, brought in a lot of good players. He changed the mould slightly, because he'd a lot of dig in midfield, but he's got creative players in midfield, and the expectation of the Aberdeen supporters are always up there. He spoke about expectations, but I think he'll comfortably finish second. Yeah.
I can't let you go without talking about your own predicament. We always, looked upon you as someone, an integral part of Hamilton Accies. So many strings to your bow at that club, and I'm sure they were appreciative of it. What are you doing now? What's your plans now?
Well, I was working with Ronnie McDonald in his business, and the two are inextricably linked between Hamilton, and both of us succeeded in what we wanted to achieve. And Ronnie's a tremendous guy, he is. But I thought the two were too closely linked, so I decided, just to have a split for it, have a couple of weeks off to decide what I'm doing. I'm getting fit down to my fighting weight.
Yep, 13 stone 6.
And I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
Not a footballer's book, it's a fiction, and it's something I've always wanted to do. So I'm almost there with it, and I've changed my name, because I thought if, like J.K. Rowling, if I change my name to Galbraith, I might get something out there, and people will start saying, he's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we hope. Don't worry about changing your name.
Alan Ruffin
changing it. Don't worry about changing your name. Even if you don't, you still get pelters. So there's no problem with that. It's a good thing, actually. Taking a change in the career. But is there still a hankering to be involved in football?
Well, I've actually, ironically, I've spoken to a couple of clubs, both in Scotland and in England, and there is a desire for me to get back into football, because I know football. Some things you're good at, and some things I'm really good at football. I'm good at mixing the dressing room with the boardroom, because there's you have to have a foot in each, and I could see me getting back into football. So, but I want to juggle that with a business side as well. So that's not always possible. But I'm enjoying the break. I'm enjoying the time off, and I'm enjoying the cycling. Because I hear you two guys are the Chris Hoys of the cycling world in Scotland, and I just want to eclipse what you're doing.
Yeah, well, it won't be difficult for you to eclipse Ruffy because he still can't work the gears. But as far as you playing with him, you played with him at Partick Thistle. I mean, Davy Provan always used to say to me, "Remember, there are no friends in football; it's just acquaintances." What was it like to have him as a teammate?
It was wonderful. It was a laugh a minute. I mean, that's, you know, I played for 7 clubs, and that's probably the best dressing room I've ever played in, because, you know, there was no backstabbing. Everybody was supportive of each other, and it was the funniest place ever, you know. And Ruffy was the king of the comedians, and, you know, with a manager, I think it was basically we were collective as a team because we'd such a hard manager in Bertie Auld that used to chastise us and really stuck into us, so we kept together. It was some great times. And
I think if you ask any football player, the biggest loss when you retire is the dressing room.
absolutely.
The dressing room.
Yeah.
Yeah, people would not believe what goes on in a dressing room for day to day, the wind-ups, what goes on.
I
and
can
that
just
kind of
tell you
thing.
something about. I arrived from transferred. It was the second record transfer for Partick Thistle from Dundee, and at the first game, Ruffy's just back for the World Cup, and we're playing up at Aberdeen. We stop at Stonehaven. He arrives in the bus with a white suit, right, and Bobby Houston sits beside him with a black leather suit. So we go up at Stonehaven, and Bobby he's got black stripe down his white suit, and he says, "Oh, Badger, what's happened?" And he says, he says, "Margaret, that was his wife, she thought it was looking a bit tacky, so she covered in boot polish just to brush." And then we get to Stonehaven, and he dives into the water to get something as a bet. And so we arrive at Aberdeen, and Scotland's international goalkeeper's behind me in the bus, walking off. And I'm looking back at him, and he's got this black stripe down his white suit, and absolutely black. And that was the best Scotland could offer. But what a goalkeeper, and somebody you could rely on every game. Magnificent.
We need to get Davy on more often, because there's a million and one other stories that we could do late night after midnight. Believe me, if only we could tell the whole story and nothing but. Thanks to David MacKinnon. We do hope you get back into football very quickly indeed. From Ruffy and myself, hope you enjoyed the programme. Good night.